Hello, everybody. Welcome to Surfing Your Edge. I am Kristine Goad, your Surfing Your Edge coach, and today I am with my wonderful guest, Elizabeth Johnston. I am so glad to have you with me today, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for taking time to be here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I just want to let you know, Elizabeth is a story coach, but she is so much more than that. So please stay with us and let me tell you more about her. And she has something to share for everyone. Um, she is the Elizabeth is an author, professor, and story coach, and she's helped thousands realize their creative writing dreams. She's a certified instructor with the Buren Center for Guided Autobiography, and through her own podcast, Own Your Creativity, she champions the importance of creativity in everyday life. She received a Canada Council of the Arts writing grant for the research and writing of her creative nonfiction book, No Small Potatoes, and her video poem, Keepsake, was shortlisted in 2 film festival competitions. So thank you for being with me today again. And I'd like to dive right into the creativity in everyday life piece. What do you mean by that?
Well, I've been immersed in creative things for as long as I can remember. And it's particularly story. Story really captured my imagination as a child, starting with fairy tales all the way on up till now. And then I ended up teaching creative writing, all different types of creative writing, from screenwriting to poetry to children's writing, everything. And what I realized was that people have creativity in them, but a lot of people think that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually like the missing ingredient in a lot of people's lives. And I figured that out personally because, like I said, creativity, I was just like immersed in it. But after I was working for a while, teaching creative stuff, because people would say, oh, you're so lucky, you get to teach screenwriting and poetry, and that must be so inspiring. And it is, but it is also work, and it is a job, right? And there's office politics, even in academia.
Oh, yes.
So, those things kind of wear on you. And I, realized at one point that, yes, I was doing all this wonderful stuff for everybody else, but I was feeling cranky. I was feeling unfulfilled. I was feeling like, is this all there is?
Mm.
And I thought, and it was true. I mean, I have a dream job. So why wasn't I happy? Why was I, feeling less than 100%? And I realized it was because I wasn't nurturing my own creativity. I was pouring it out into everybody else and doing a very good job at it, but I was neglecting myself. And then I thought, oh my goodness, I have to step back here and put some creativity back in my life, make room for it in my life. And then when I did that, everything else got better. Like, I didn't care
Mm.
about office politics, all the other stuff that used to stress me out, and I'd complain about it to whoever would listen. It was like not important anymore because I shifted my priorities, and I made room for creativity. And so that was the point when I thought, well, it can't just be me that this has happened to. And so and I have a lot of artist friends as well. And often a lot of them make most of their money teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started talking to them, and I'm realizing, like, everybody is feeling this. Everybody is feeling the pressure of making a living and doing right by their jobs at the expense of themselves. And they haven't figured out how to create that balance. And that is actually what led to me putting my podcast together. And so,
Mm.
and in that, I actually talk to people of all walks of life, including, a philosopher, business executives, an engineer, and including a bunch of creative people too. But just the gamut of people. And the whole premise of the podcast is, when in your life did you get disconnected from your creativity. And what was your life like when that happened?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get back on track with bringing creativity in your life? Because it's different for everybody. For me, it's primarily through writing, but for other people, it's in, it could be different ways. Like if you're an entrepreneur and if you are doing things just to get money as opposed to things that feed your soul, then you're going to be disconnected from your creativity. And so you have to, make a change and a concerted effort to bring yourself back onto the path of creativity. So that was for me how I realized that creativity, I mean, everybody is creative. If you're human, you're creative. And especially now, right? Like we've had to figure out how to be creative to navigate our way through this pandemic. But people don't give themselves credit for their own creativity. And they don't make the rightful place in their life for creativity, because when you do, everything else gets better. Everything else seems to fall into place. Possibilities open that you didn't see before. And so, a lot of times people will say, like, what's the value of creativity? Like, what's the ROI? What's my return on investment if I'm going to, make some room in my life for creativity? Well, you can think of it the other way. What is the possible return on investment of not doing it? If you're working yourself to the brink, doing a job that isn't completely fulfilling, that's going to take a toll on your health. Like, there's no doubt about that. Whether it's your physical health or your mental health, it's going to take a toll. And so what are the costs of that? Right? So would you rather have an hour a week or 15 minutes a day where you're nurturing your creativity, or would you like to be in the hospital? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that all sounds right to me. And I completely agree that when you're being more creative, everything does get better. And I've been in that place too, where I'm still not allowing as much creativity in my life as I would like. So I have a question for you about that at the end. But I've also found that sometimes returning to creativity has saved me. I mean, I've been like at the very bottom and just thought my life I've had a history of depression, and returning to writing and creativity throughout my life has always pulled me back from that edge. And I've said on multiple occasions that I think writing has saved my life, even though I'm not a professional writer.
Yeah. I mean, the whole field of art therapy, lends credence to what you're saying, that, when we engage in that, it just makes us feel better. Like, one of the activities that I often do, and whether it's like I teach business communication as well. And sometimes I actually, when we're in a real life situation, I'll bring in crayons and paper and
Nice.
stickers and give them, an assignment that's related to what we're doing there. But just the act of getting creative and still thinking about your business, or being a business student or whatever, but just the act of that, you can feel the tension in the room go down. When people are absorbed in that kind of creative activity, the anxiety levels go down. They start laughing more. They actually start chit-chatting with their neighbors more than they do in a regular class. And I think that and there actually are studies, scientific studies, to show the benefits on our body and our physiology when we engage in creative activities on a regular basis too. One-off is good, but when we do it on a regular basis, even better. And so, I love opening up people's minds to the possibility that it's okay just to play. And see, that's the thing. Creativity is about playing. And as we get older, we lose that facility for play. We think like, oh no, that's just for kids, and we have to be serious adults now. But we need to get that sense of play into our everyday life, because even as an entrepreneur, even for yourself, like to think like, oh, what am I going to do next? I'm going to create these retreats. That there had to have been a sense of adventure and play. And yes, maybe some anxiety and like, ooh, this is, something new and a little bit trepidatious about it. But there had to have been some sense of play and excitement that led you down that path, right?
Mhm.
And that's the other thing that, when we allow ourselves creativity and play, we get to tune into our own intuition. And that's another, piece of the puzzle that we've left behind as we've grown up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to teach creativity to elementary school students, and by
Oh,
then they had already gotten to the, oh, I can't draw. Oh, I can't this. I can't do that.
wow.
And we start to, we start to say, I can't do that, and compare ourselves at such an early age. And by
Yeah.
the time you get to be an adult, it just seems like, oh, that's for those people, that's for someone else. And so
Yeah.
I love that you're bringing it back to the fact that it is play that's the most important part. And because again, when you say creativity, it sounds like this big amorphous thing, and you've either got it or you don't. And so I'm going to jump forward in our
Yeah.
conversation and just go ahead and ask you, how do you start a creative practice if you don't have one?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And that's something that I actually really love sharing with people. And it goes back to another course that I teach at the university, which is self-management techniques. And it's a course that was created for people who failed out of their program. So to get back on their academic track, they have to take, this course about goal setting and agency and motivation. And one of the things that we would teach them was how to set up a schedule, right? How to manage your time. That was part of self-management techniques. And the exercise in the book that we were using at the time suggested a certain method, which would actually take about 2 weeks to do. And so before I started teaching the course, I tried it out myself, because there's no way that I'm going to be, trying to teach something to somebody else when I don't even know what it's all about. So what it was is that, and you could actually start this after our interview today. You can take some time and take out a calendar, like a blank calendar 24/7. And put for today, put what you did before we got on this call today, put what you did, and then what you're planning to do for the rest of today. And then for the next 6 days, what are the must-haves, the things that you absolutely have to do no matter what, like sleep and eat. Maybe you've got client calls, right? So that has to go in there. Maybe you have to do grocery shopping this week, go online and order everything or whatever. So what are and if you're religious and, you do your religious practice on Friday night or whatever, put that in there, the things that are non-negotiables. And then if you don't have any other plans and there's empty parts in your schedule, great. Now what you do is for that whole week, you carry that, and I recommend it's actually like a physical thing, not on your phone, because it's easier to get to if it's a physical piece of paper. And then multiple times a day, like every time you complete a task, you put a check mark beside that. And if there's like a gap in your schedule and there was nothing planned, no non-negotiable thing, put down what you did instead. And that includes even if you binge watched Netflix for 5 hours, right? Whatever it was that you did, put that in there. And when it comes to a non-negotiable thing, if you did something different, then put an X through it and put what you really did. Okay. And so then you do that for the whole week. And then at the end of the week, you actually look at, it's like, okay, what did I really do with my time? Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time, I'm too busy. But then they realize, oh my goodness, I watched TV for 20 hours this week, right? And so then that's 20 hours that maybe you could recoup. And even if it's just 1 hour or 5 hours that you decide, okay, I'm going to create a practice, a creativity practice. And it could be as little as 10 minutes a day, right? But the key is that you should do it every day and you should commit to that. And so if it seems like, oh my God, an hour a day, that's impossible, then just do 10 minutes or just do 5 minutes. The first week, just commit to 5 minutes. But you have to like set your timer, sit down and actually do something, you know, for those 5 minutes. And doing something creative for 5 minutes could be actually just sitting out on your balcony and listening to the birds just for 5 minutes, or going for a walk and noticing what you see on your walk as opposed to trying to get to the destination, right? There's all sorts of things that we could do to start priming ourselves for that. But so that's the end of the first week. And then at the end of the first week, you decide, okay, so I'm going to redo my schedule. All the non-negotiables are still there, all my client calls, whatever. But now every day for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever I've decided to give myself is there. It's in my schedule. And then see if you were able to make that schedule. Do it for another week and do the same thing, check it off. And then at the end of the second week, you can reassess. It's like, oh, wow, 5 minutes was so easy. I think I can do 15 minutes, right? So that's, you know, the first step, I think, is to really see where we're spending our time, and then make adjustments. Now, it could be that you realize, oh my goodness, I'm multitasking. Not only do I not have any time and extra blank spaces in my schedule, I'm doing 2 things or 3 things at the same time, or trying to. Well, scientifically, it's proven that we cannot multitask effectively. And in fact, there could be negative effects on our brain when we try to multitask. So if that's the case, then something's got to go. Right? That's what that's telling you, is something's got to go, and you have to make some choices about what's going to go and what's going to stay. And that's going to be difficult, but it has to be done if you want to make room in your life for something new. And that was the case with me. Like, I knew I was really productive. I knew I got a lot of things done. And, but then I also realized that I wasn't planning downtime. And that's what I'm saying, like, even just sitting for 5 minutes and listening to the birds, it's important. It's like a field that's lying fallow, you know, that the farmers, they let them lie fallow for a season or 4 seasons, because they need to replenish the nutrients in the soil, right? And we're not doing that for ourselves. When we ignore our creativity, it's like we're not putting nutrients into our own soil. And so I realized that I wasn't doing that. And that's probably why I felt burnt out. And I was feeling cranky and everything was getting on my nerves, is because I wasn't giving time, for my creativity, but also just to do nothing. That's an important part of the creative process, is just seemingly doing nothing and recharging our batteries. And so now every semester, I have a new schedule because my classes are scheduled at a different time. So, but I put in downtime in my schedule, because I will forget me if I don't put me into my schedule. And so that's what I realized, that I have to actually schedule myself in. And so since I think it's about 2007 when I did the video poem, that was when I started, you know, in a really concerted way, is always putting myself in there. It's like your oxygen mask, you know, you have to put your oxygen mask on first, because you're no good to anybody else if you don't.
I love all of that. And there's so much in what you just said. And I know that getting a handle on, you know, your schedule and what you're actually spending your time on, that's a game changer. I've done that with clients, and that one single piece can just change a whole person's outlook on what time means.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And I agree about having to put yourself on your own schedule. So I'm looking at what November is. November is going to be an experimental month for me. I've decided to stop. I've got my ideal day in my head. You know, you've done that probably exercise where you write your ideal day, and the ideal day stays in the future because we're waiting for the universe to open up and say, okay, we've handled everything else. This is your day. Go do exactly what you want. And I've decided it's never going to happen. So November is going to be my month of ideal days. And
awesome.
I'm going to create my ideal day. and just live it and see what happens to my life. So
What a great experiment.
yeah, I think so too. And, you know, daily creativity is definitely going to be in there. And even if it's just, you know, like you said, working 10 minutes at a time,
Yeah.
um, I'm going to get myself back into my schedule.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Um, and I know that, you know, you have been teaching for quite a while, and probably some of what you've been doing has been online, but has the pandemic changed the way you work this year?
Yeah, it really has changed the way I work. And like I've been doing my online classes and challenges since 2013, I think, or
Mhm.
14. So I'm not a stranger to working online, but the pandemic I felt was a call to greatness, really, a call to step into something bigger. And so in March, when I realized like, oh, this is really going to be a thing, um, I I saw a lot of people online were freaking out and
Mhm.
were really anxious. And my students too. I was so surprised because, you know, our students are of the generation. I think some of them like were born in computers. Like they're so, you know, symbiotic with computers and technology. Um, and so I didn't think it would affect them very much. That in the middle of like an in-person class, we had to go online. Um, but like my students in one of my classes, they seem to completely forget how to use our Moodle, which is our online forum for school. And like, you know, I still posted the same things on Moodle. They still had to upload their assignments, you know, on Moodle, but somehow they forgot how to use Moodle. Like they were just so freaked out about this change.
Mhm.
Um, and so it wasn't just my students, it was, you know, people like, you know, clients and, you know, friends on Facebook and whatnot. There was a lot of anxiety. And so I thought, okay, so how can I help people feel less anxiety? And so I did a 5-day challenge about how to use creativity to cope with COVID.
Nice.
And and then the other thing um, was that a lot of people were saying like, okay, how are you going to pivot? How are you going to pivot? And being a writer and a lover of words, I thought, okay, what does that really mean? What's the word pivot mean? And so I looked it up, and you know, pivot for me, it's like what it means is that like you're changing directions to get out of the way of something,
Ah.
right? So it's kind of like a reactionary thing. It's a fear-based thing, right? When you're pivoting, like squirrels are pivoting all the time to get away from, you know, oncoming cars, right? And I thought, yeah, okay, well, like, and pivoting is good. Like if you're in a dangerous situation, pivoting is good. You want to get out of the danger. So it's a survival mechanism, and that's all well and good. But you don't want to keep living in that fear-based movement. And so I thought, what's a better way of looking at it? And I thought COVID is a watershed moment. Instead of a pivot, we should really think of things as this is our watershed moment, because we get an opportunity to take, you know, go to higher ground and really like see the lay of the land. Like, what's going on in my life? And where do I want to go? Like, where do I want to consciously put my feet next? As opposed to, oh my goodness, there's a train coming. Let's, you know, jump out of the way. And so that's what encouraged me to think, okay, like how can I help, and how can I use this moment as a watershed moment to like really
Mhm.
make a profound change in how I want to show up in my life and in the world. And yes, that does require a pivot, but I just think words are important, and like how we phrase it um, makes a difference. Like when I think pivot, for me, it's a fear-based thing. When I think watershed, for me, it's expansive, and my anxiety just goes way down, you know?
Right.
So that's how the pandemic has changed the way I think.
I love it. And I'm in the same boat with you. Everyone was screaming pivot, pivot, pivot. And I'm like, what if you don't need to pivot? How
Yeah.
do you know that what you're doing isn't going to keep working?
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
So, and I also found myself getting up one night a couple weeks into it, and in the middle of the night, I just couldn't sleep because I was having the squirrel brain running around worrying about things. And I woke up and I put in the middle of a piece of paper, opportunities. And I filled the whole page before I could go
Wow.
back to bed, because I just felt like, as you just showed, it's a shift in our own thinking from one of I'm the victim to I'm in control.
Right.
And, this is terrible, to maybe it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it is terrible,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that we all have to lose our heads and that we can't
Right.
make it meaningful. And I'm really hoping that people are using this time to make meaningful choices for their long-term life going forward.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing that and helping your clients do that as well. So good for you.
Thank you.
Um, and I know that the way I met you was actually online. I went to my first big online networking event and saw you there. And then I kept bumping into you at other little online networking places until I finally said, okay, hey, we should talk. Um, have you noticed, how has, aside from you, are you meeting people in a different way now? Let's start there.
Yeah, I am meeting people in a different way. And it like this started me meeting people in a different way. It actually started just over a year ago, but I feel that it really got traction during the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
because although I have had my online business since 2013, um, I really still felt like a solopreneur as opposed to an entrepreneur, or like part of a community of entrepreneurs. And um, and so with the pandemic, that we didn't have any choice, quote unquote, but to embrace the online world. Um, yeah, so I see myself differently, and I see that we need to interact in a more meaningful way as opposed to like, oh, I have my business and I need to find clients. And if you can find me clients, great. If not, like, go away. Because I think a lot of people, even though, offline business or online business, I think a lot of people operate like that, or they feel like that they have to do everything. And that if they ask for help, that's a sign that, oh, their business isn't working, or like, who do you think you are? Or, what are you going to do for me? And so anyway, but I've always had an abundance mindset, but I don't think that I actually walk the talk. Like I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I believe in that. But then with the pandemic and more of these online networking events where we first met, I started realizing that there's a way that we can collaborate and advance our own businesses without it necessarily being like, okay, I'm going to do this for you, so you have to do exactly this for me. Like there can be ways that we can help each other, and grow our impact, by being on each other's, Facebook lives or podcasts, or and then it actually made me feel like, oh, I am a part of this awesome community of entrepreneurs. And there's like so many people that are doing so many wonderful things that I'm not like either qualified to do or interested in doing, but my group, my tribe would so benefit from knowing about these other people, right? And so it goes back to like, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to grow a business, right? Nobody's successful by themselves. Even if I were just working in my basement by myself, I still have to have people who are buying my widgets. Like I can't have a business in isolation. Nobody can, right? And the more that we understand that we can play together and be creative, and open, the better. So I forget what your question was, but that's where I went with it.
No, that was great. And I know that you've got something new coming up for you that you're starting that kind of combines your creativity and your ability to hold space for people online, excuse me, with also helping them work on their businesses and grow their businesses. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So as I was saying, about a year ago, I encountered JVology. And so that's run by Jay Fizzett, and he is a master at basically masterminds and networking and joint ventures. So JVology is like short for, joint ventureology. And so joint ventures are where you're working with people, and maybe it could be affiliates, or maybe it could just be an exchange, like I'll be on your podcast, you'll be on my podcast, or, that sort of thing. And so I did his 5-day challenge about, five joint venture partners in 5 days. And I think I did it 4 times. So he did it 3 times this year and once last year. And it wasn't until I think it was like the second or third time that I'd done it this year that finally all the pieces clicked for me about joint ventures. And that's why, at the beginning when you said, Elizabeth is more than just a story coach, so stay tuned because she's got something for everybody. I think when people hear joint ventures, they kind of tune out because they think like, oh, is that multi-level marketing? Or, oh, that sounds like something only for the big players. It's not for some little, solopreneur person like me. And I used to think that too. Like, what is joint ventures anyway? And why do they want me to join in with them? And then I realized it's really just about taking the next step in your business and really standing behind what you offer, right? Because if what you do is really awesome and you help people with it, why wouldn't you want other people to say, hey, I like what you do, come on my show and I will spread the word about what you do. And it's for free. I'm not charging you, that's what I thought was so amazing, was that there's people out there, and I think people want to help each other, but they just don't necessarily know how to do that. That's why I just love the JVology world and the Collaborate world, which is a different one. And there's a lot of them popping up now. And why? Because it's working. And it's a way that we get to direct how we want to show up in our business and how we want to show up with other business owners. And anyway, so I'm doing, I'm part of JVology, and I am putting together, it's called Global Lounge Host, and it's going to be a mastermind. And so it's a mastermind for entrepreneurs, but because obviously I come from a creativity spin, it's going to have that element to it as well, but it's going to be for entrepreneurs who want to learn about, from other people and make the acquaintance of other people and see if there's a synergy where they can joint venture with each other, or maybe become an affiliate or that. So basically it's kind of like networking on steroids. And the other thing is, though, that I wanted to let people know is that I never really liked networking. Like, when you go to these big chapter things and I didn't like it because I would go in there and just, say, hi, I'm Elizabeth. Oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. Do you want to buy my widget? Like, they would immediately go for the sale. It's like, I don't want to marry you yet. I just met you. Like, we have to date a little bit, And I guess that's what I love about JVology, is that it's a dating process almost. You really get to know people and what they're doing and see if there's an alignment between what they're doing and what you're doing. If you believe in the same things, and the same methodology of helping people or whatever. And then you can kind of organically, creatively, naturally lead into something. And we met, I think it was back in March. That was the event that we met. And here we are in October. So this is our first sort of, official joint venture thing, unofficially. But, but it didn't happen in one night going to a networking event and saying, okay, buy my widget. It's like, no, but it happens naturally. And I feel good about it. And I imagine that you feel good about it. And, like the interaction just feels right, as opposed to like, oh my goodness, I got to get clients. So I got to go do this and I got to do that. And it takes away that, that feeling. And so, so I'm creating a mastermind that's under the umbrella of JVology, and I'm looking for people who are interested in finding out more about it. And JVology Live is coming up in December, and that's where Jay Fizette is going to take a weekend to teach you all the fundamentals about joint ventures. And so I'm inviting people to come with me and play at JVology in December.
Wonderful. So I will make sure that I put the link to that in the comments for people if they'd like to join you there. And as you said, I'd like to just point out to people, how overwhelming it is to walk into a networking event. And I used to get such bad headaches because I would be stressing about, I should be talking to people. I should be talking to people. What do I talk to people about? Who do I talk to next? Where do I go? How do I get out of this conversation? How do I start that conversation? And it's a completely different experience when you're online, because there is more of a format and a safe structure where you're meeting small groups of people at a time rather than just being thrown into a room and like free for all, give out as many cards as you can get. So it's less stressful, and it does lead to much more meaningful relationships, I think, over time.
I love that you pointed that out, because it is more structured, and a lot of people that I've talked to have said that they actually love networking now because there's a structure to it, but they're also at home in the safety of their environment, and if like they wanted to like leave the call, it's like, oops, here, I've got to go, my, the doorbell rang or whatever, right? There's an easy out for you, but it's, so there's that safety that you realize, like, I can turn my computer off at any time if I'm not liking this. But the way that JVology and other things like Collaborate are put together is that there is a structure, there is a format, and even the masterminds that you've attended with me, there is a really strict structure, and everybody gets heard, everybody gets to participate, and it, it's a fair and equitable distribution of the time, but it's also really ultra focused and productive. And it makes you feel good by the end.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think with the mastermind that you're going to be building, that'll give people an opportunity to really build a core group of people that they feel safe with, that they can go to discuss, anything that's coming up. Because we're all surfing a new edge right now.
Yes.
We all are, figuring things out. Excuse me. Figuring things out together. So having a group where you can go and know that I'm going to have this community who has my back.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm really excited that you're doing this, and I know you're going to be fantastic at it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristine.
So if you'd like to know more about Elizabeth, you can find her on her website, ownyourcreativity.com. Is there a link to your podcast there as well?
No, but you can go to bit.ly/OYC podcast, and that'll take you right there.
Okay, great. Because she
I'll
does
give you
have
that link.
Okay, cool. She's got a great podcast, and it's not overwhelming. One of those that you have to, devote a whole bunch of time to, but definitely worth listening to. And then she's also on Facebook. She has a Facebook group called Own Your Creativity. And then I will put in the link to the Global Lounge host that she's discussed in talking about going to JVology in December. Did I get that? Is that okay? Okay, great. All right. And I just want to say again that if you're working on anything in your life that could use some more creativity, please check Elizabeth out. She's definitely got something. She's working with memoir writers a lot right now, but she does creativity work with lots of different people doing lots of different things, and she's definitely got something to share. So, Elizabeth, before I let you go, is there anything I didn't ask you or something that I should have, or that you'd like to say to kind of wrap this up to make it feel more complete for you?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to mention too was that, owning your creativity helps you take the lead. That's, one of the things that I really believe in is that we become our own CEOs. We become a leader in the field of us when we own our creativity. But, creativity is also about surfing your edge. And that's why I was really excited to be on your show was that surfing your edge requires creativity. And creativity requires courage. So I think that it's important for people to realize that if they're going to have success, creativity, confidence, joy, clarity in their lives, that they have to surf the edge of who they are, because that's also where their creativity lies.
Perfect. Maybe I should have you do my PR. Yes, that was perfect. Thank you very much. And I'm going to let that be the final thought for the show. So thank you very much for being with me today, Elizabeth. It's been amazing. And
Thank
thank you
you.
everyone for watching. If you're catching this in the replay, please leave questions and comments here and I'll make sure that Elizabeth sees them. And I will also drop in the links that I've been promising so that you can find Elizabeth in all of the places she currently resides online. So thank you very much again for being here and I am wishing you wonder. I will see you next week. Take care.